Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Woke Blokes podcast. Ryan Hassan from the Centre for Healing here, joined as always by Nick Sutherland from Myndfit. Nico, how are you going?
I want to do it, man. I want to do it, what we are talking about before.
Go on. Nick's got a really shitty joke that I didn't get that he wants to say first up. Let's go. Let's see how many people get it.
But before I send it down range, Steve, have you seen the Adam Sandler movie Big Daddy?
Yes.
Yeah, does that ring?
Yes.
Yes. So I was going to run with, I'm excited because we've got Scuba Steve on today's show. And it's great to have our first Hollywood guest on.
Please don't fake laugh, Steve. Please
that
don't
wasn't
encourage
fake. That was genuine. That was a genuine laugh, Huss.
As soon as he says Scuba Steve, I think of the number of times others have gone, Jesus, mate, put your freaking bell helmet on. We're going deep with Scuba Steve. It's not even scuba diving. It's like, you need the full commercial rig on because that's how deep we're going.
You need the big binacle at the front.
Yeah. With the airline back to the ship.
So Hash, you got to trust me sometimes.
I stand corrected. Okay, I stand corrected. I will never doubt your comedic abilities again.
I delivered it to Hash before we got on, and dead set. There was this tumbleweed rolling through and crickets in the background.
I haven't seen the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, you're doing this weekend.
This weekend, you reckon? All right.
You know what you're doing today with your hangover?
Well, hangover's nearly gone. I'm nearly finished my celery juice, and I'm feeling good. But I indulged a bit too much last night for the listeners. But Nico, can you introduce our guest? They've already heard the dulcet tones, but give a proper introduction without any, shitty jokes.
Yeah, well, we've got fellow ex-serviceman Commando Steve on for the people that have watched TV, or for those in the Sydney area that are into their health and wellness and PT, Steve Willis. So thanks for coming on, mate, and taking the time out for having a chat with hungover Hass and hilarious Nick today.
No, it's great to be on, boys. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Look at Hass. He's struggling. He's really struggling.
No, I'm not struggling at your hungover Hassan. Hilarious. God.
I couldn't come up with anything for Nick. So I mean, we follow each other on Instagram, Steve, and comment on each other's posts occasionally. And there's this Australian veteran-owned business community on Instagram and beyond that all sort of support each other. Heaps of ex-serving members, both men and women, who have left the ADF and gone on to do their own thing. So, are you still connected with the veteran community much, or have sort of much to do with back there?
Oh, not as much as I probably could be or should be in that regard. But definitely with mates that I was close with in the forces, and from time to time, helping with different things that need some light shined upon them, or just to create some awareness around them. It's for me, it's much like anybody else. It's kind of boots on the ground every day, just chipping away, putting your 2 cents in and just being of service to other people.
Yeah. And so you started off in infantry, so you were a grunt, and then then you went joined the PT ranks.
Well, I joined with the intention of going engineers and doing a trade, and the DS, or the crusties that were hanging around putting you through the paces are like, there's no point being in the army unless you go to infantry. So I was easily influenced by those guys and found myself in at the School of Infantry, and then posted into the 4th Battalion when they separated 2nd, 4th, back in the early 90s, and they raised 4 in Sydney, and then a year and a half, 2 years later, they decided on making that a full-time commando capability. So the blokes that were in that unit at that point in time were given the opportunity to either stay and do selection and jump through the hoops, or take a posting out. And I guess I was too young and dumb to think anything different. And I just wanted to be with my mates. And so I stayed and, got put through the ringer, and I came out the other side. And even today, I think back on it and think, shit, how did I actually pass all of that stuff? But, I managed to, and, spent the better part of, the next 10 years, doing the job. And, for anyone that's been in the military and the like and knows anything about, the SF community, they've really been in the thick of it over the past, 15 to 20 years.
The Special Forces community, Ryan. We got a break. Got that. All right, cool. We got to dumb it down for the bloke over there.
The civilians over here.
For old mate in Civvy Town. So the the Special Forces community and the ADF in general are going through a bit of a tough time at the moment with what's going on in Afghanistan, and everyone that was deployed over there sort of feeling like, oh, it was all for nothing, and what did we do it for? And we've lost mates for no reason, and so on and so forth. Have you sort of touched base with anyone that's struggling with having served and now is really unsure about what they did and the reasoning behind it or anything?
No, not so much. I've had, not me personally as such. I guess I was quite removed from the time I left the military to, everything going on and the deployments, overseas. So, mates that I had that stayed in the military and went on to, deploy and the like, I've kept in contact with them and we chat from time to time. But outside of that, not really. It's been other mates that were, in positions, as sergeants or warrant officers and the like, who've now, some of them are still there actually, and others that have moved on and kind of taken it upon themselves to be a bit of a voice of reason as such, and just help, connect with the guys and, check in with them. And, like anything, it's one thing checking in and having those conversations and the like, but, when people are left to their own devices and on their own, they're in their own heads, where are their heads going? Is that mind taken over, and, all that shit that kind of goes on, kind of the mind wants to consume itself. And, it's challenging. And I think, even off the back of, what everything else that's going on within our own home territory as such, with this COVID and just the rules and regulations and all of these restrictions that have been imposed. And it's like, to a degree, a sense of freedom, and what is it that we've actually you fight for, and this ability to have a voice and not the sense of discrimination, but the opportunity to make choices. And what's sometimes you consider, what's the point?
Yeah, totally. The sense of, I don't know, I went through School of Infantry too, so I joined as a choco first, and so I did the first 13-week IAT at Kapuka. So I did 13 weeks there, and then went to School of Infantry, and then when I went full time, I went to School of Armour, and then ended up in 2CAV up in Darwin. And coming out of it, I came out a bit banged up mentally and physically. I was pre all the deployment stuff as well. I missed the boat to Timor by 2 days. I blew my knee out, so all the mates shipped off and came back, and get to wear their medals and ribbons and all that sort of stuff. And I found it really conflicting, because I'm trying to maintain this sense of camaraderie, which is what I loved in the army and the military, and that sense of mateship and whatnot. But then all of a sudden, I felt like an outsider as well. And with any of your mates that deployed, and Anzac Day is a struggle for me, because of they're all wearing their medals and so on and so forth, and I sort of feel a bit on the outside. Have you encountered any of that before, or?
Oh yeah, you definitely get it with those that do, I guess first and foremost deployments, and those who go at a particular time, and there's certain things that they do or they experience, and others aren't a part of that. Firsthand for myself in making a choice to leave the military, and then within a year they were all there. And the other thing in my day to a degree was off the back of Timor and September the 11th, the government wanted that second counterterrorism capability, and I was one of the blokes that was tasked to do that. So we were here in Australia, doing our thing and training up in that capability, whilst the rest of the green roles, the unit was deploying into Iraq. And you're going like, oh shit, I want to be on that deployment. The whole point of being in the military and training and doing what you're doing is to go and face it, not knowing what you're facing and the ramifications of it all. But being a part of this CT role where it's great, it's a bit of a kudos, but really, are you ever going to use it? And it's kind of in a percentage wise, it's very minimal. Whereas these guys are deploying into the thick of it, so it starts to create some separation and compartmentalizing things and the like. And that's
groups within the big group, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. And then people get a bit standoffish with one another, and unless you were there, they don't want to talk to you about different stuff. And it's like, yeah, and like you said, when it becomes more of those social occasions and people are putting a few down the hatch and they start talking shit, it starts to bubble away, and it can get a bit messy.
Well, that's where the egos start coming to the surface, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I guess for myself and my own journey, which I can only really speak from, is the choices and the decisions that I made, and kind of in that process making those transitions. And I guess in anything we do in life, the transition between point A and point B is always the most difficult. And it's like we want to transition from where we are to that next point. We want it now, and unfortunately, you're taking a lot of what's gone on at point A with you into point B, and it's the ability to let go of a lot of that stuff so that you can, maybe shape yourself in something new or whatever it is that's you're doing. And for myself, in leaving the military, it was like, what do I love? What do I enjoy doing? And for me, it was fitness. It was something that was there, in my youth and my teens when I was really struggling, with identity and fitting in and peers and all that other type of stuff. And even through everything that the military threw at me, I still loved training. And I still did, my own stuff, went to the gym, I'd be out doing stuff, with a few other blokes from time to time, whilst everyone else was like, they just did what was necessary of them from the military. And outside of that, it was downtime. And so me making that choice to leave the military, go into fitness and the like, I was quite fearful. There was a lot of apprehension, as anybody experiences. But I had to let go of that guy that I was, the rank that I was, the things that I had done in the military, so that I could put my focus and intention into, that newfound craft and honing my skills there, which I think a lot of people, that creates a lot of hang-ups for people.
But it is a forging experience. Like, the training that we go through is to basically strip you down and then rebuild you. And that stuff sticks with you for life. Like, I know when I got out for medical reasons, I was med discharged. And so we were on 24 hours notice to move to Timor when I did my knee. So I wasn't brought down from that heightened state of readiness. Plus I had the trauma of a knee, plus the trauma of not going over with my mates, and then bastardized and bullied when I was just sort of left behind. And then the cert one in Civvy, I was taught to make a coffee, and they said, oh, this is your new life. This is your transition out of the army back into civilian life, is how to make a coffee. And I was like, what the fuck? I wasn't linked in with any psych services or any physical rehab services or anything. It was just, off you go, good luck. And I think that's what you're speaking of there is one of the biggest things that people, whether it become leaving the military or leaving a certain career for a certain amount of time, you do have that conditioning, and it's really, if you've got someone to guide you through that transition process, it makes it so much easier. But more often than not, we don't have everyone guidance. We just got to figure it out for
Yeah.
ourselves and then deal with the fallout.
Yeah, like I don't know where it's at. You know, it seems to be, you know, from my observations, a bit better than it was, you know, back in the, you know, in the early 2000s. You know, it was like, thanks very much, see you later.
Yeah.
And for yourself, you know, I've had mates in a similar position where they've been medically discharged, and that's the last thing they want. You know, if they didn't have that injury, they'd probably still be in the military, and that in and of itself creates a whole host of different, I guess, challenges that have to be worked through and dealt with. And as you said, having those that have maybe walked that path before them, sharing their experiences so that people don't feel so alone, but also the lessons learned from the experiences that to help as a guide, because then you can create, you know, a bit of a fast forward to fast track people to a particular point, you know, through that learning. And that's, a lot of that's just cognitive function, isn't it? It's the ability to comprehend, and then taking that comprehension and putting it into practice. And I think, as physical as the military can be, and you see it and you've experienced it, and even for myself, you can get very bogged down in, you know, in that mind, and you don't express or put into practice a lot of the things in a physical or action, practical way, and then that's where it just consumes itself. And you know, when you can get someone else and kind of reach in and pull you out of it, or, you know, hopefully at some point you kind of, you know, there's a ray of light or whatever you want to call it, and you go, shit, I've just got to bring it back to basics. I've got to think about the simple things. You know, I've got to put one foot in front of the other. I've got to take a breath, you know, whatever it might be to get that, you get yourself in motion as such, and keep chipping away. Because we're taught all those skills. You're taught all those skills.
Well, but it's hard to employ them when you're not present and you're not functioning properly. Like, you know, when the last thing I heard from a doctor was, I'm going to make sure a malingering bastard like you never joins this man's army again. And I was like, what the fuck? I didn't ask to get this injury. I was super fit as well. You know, I was similar to you, and my fondest memory of the military was probably the physicality of it. You know, I loved the exercise. I loved the struggle, the pushing. I was running 2.4K in 7 minutes. I was, you know, just absolutely besotted with all that. And then to have that taken away from you through no choice, you know, just through an injury. I didn't realize at the time that the physical injury came with a mental injury as well, and that was unseen and undiagnosed, and it was compounded and compounded. So by the time I got out, I was pretty banged up internally, and I just, I didn't have the skills to transition, and there was no one to guide me. There was no ray of sunshine. There was Jack Daniels. He was my saving grace for the next 8 years, and me and Jack hung out until, you know, he guided me gently down to rock bottom, and I was in a position where, you know, I had agoraphobia and couldn't leave my house. It was just me and Jack hanging out together, and that's what happened, you know. So the intrinsic link between your mental and your physical health is so powerful, and when one goes, often the other sort of tends to go with it. Well, that's what I found in my case.
I agree with you 100%. And you know, it's that perspective and how you come at things, and, you know, angle and the like. And, you know, I've experienced that even just in the past couple of years, you know, doing different things, and you build this life and this identity, and it, you know, it goes through particular incarnations, and, you know, it improves in certain areas, but you don't recognize how much effort and time you're putting into it. And then one day, or all of a sudden, you just find you're observing yourself, and you're like, who am I? You know, or something's taken away. You know, for example, the other year I got to do Survivor, and I'm sitting on an island. I spent all these years in the military, you know, all this time training, doing physical activity, And, I've been through the ringer with survival courses and stuff and eating very little and the like. But the objectives and the intent behind what it is that you're doing is different. And I'm sitting on this island. It's self-imposed. I've said yes to doing it and the like. And, I'm pretty much starving. I have no inclination to want to train or do anything physical other than survive and do the best we can with what we've got, so that morale is high, so that when challenges come around, we can dominate. And I'm sitting there thinking, so all these years I've been putting in, doing all this, I can be left sitting there in the dirt, sleeping in the dirt with absolutely nothing, 5 bits of kit in a little Hessian bag. And who is this bloke? And that's when
it's all stripped away.
It's all stripped away. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, honestly, if I had to go home and I had nothing, what is it that I could do? I could run, but I still need to put shoes on my feet. What are some other things I could do? Well, I've gotten into the whole meditation and that mindfulness side of things, back in my early to mid 30s. So I was doing a lot of that. And I think that really helped me. But, in the sense of that connection of the mind and the physicality, it was like yoga. You don't need any shoes on your feet. You don't really need anything else other than your mind and your body, and putting yourself, through some movement patterns and a bit of a flow and this and just the like. And I was like, mate, I've got to do more of this stuff. This is the grounding stuff. This is what's going to, help me through the transition of, I guess, my 30s now into the, my 40s, mid 40s, and getting older, because my ability to recover, my ability to apply intensity and the like isn't what it was when I was younger. And so who am I now, and who do I want to be in the future? And I think, everything I'm speaking about now, speaks volumes to even those that may be younger. You got to start asking questions of yourself, now. And the sooner you do it, the younger you are, the more you're willing to ask those questions and go, delving into it and looking for answers. The more informed you are, the solutions based in that sense, and figuring things out for yourself and your ability to help others.
Yeah, I think it gives you the space to really consciously choose your life, doesn't it? Instead of just running on autopilot.
I was running on excuse my language, on autopilot until I was 33.
Yeah,
mate, I was living a life of self-destruction. Like from my younger years and growing up, and everybody has their traumas when they were kids, but I used exercise in my teens to self-destruct. I wanted to hurt myself, and rather than alcohol or drugs, I use
the exercise. Yeah, and we talk to people, and a lot of people struggle to rationalize how you can have an unhealthy relationship with something that's considered healthy. Exercise is considered really healthy, but a lot of people have an unhealthy relationship with it. They're codependent on it to feel good or to give them a sense of purpose or whatever. So that's a classic case of that.
Well, you can also sorry to jump in, but you can also, on the inverse, and people have a lot of trouble getting their head around this, you can have a healthy relationship with a drug, and you can have an unhealthy relationship with something like exercise, and vice versa. But people are we get very black and white when we think about these things.
Yeah, don't we? I know. And it's...
It sounded like what you were talking about earlier, Steve, was I think not identifying as something is key for people. Like you've had many incarnations of yourself, as I have, and as Hass has, and I think for me, not identifying as a soldier, or not identifying as a therapist now, or not identifying as something, just understand that I am just, it probably goes back to be formless, bit of Bruce Lee sort of philosophy, but it's just, I'm just on this constant journey, and I'm going to ebb and flow and move in and out of different chapters. And the more I hang on to one chapter, identify deeper with that version, then I'm going to start comparing versions, and I'll get lost and confused. And that's sort of where you find yourself moving away from that, I guess, the authentic self. And I'm curious to learn from you, Steve, what it was like, coming out of the army and then going into the spotlight, in terms of the biggest loser, and everything that comes with that, and then coming out of that and then doing what you're doing now. Was the transitions for that? What was that like?
Well, mate, I don't know. Like, it's leaving the military, going into fitness, doing that, and then I guess some of the boys I'd worked with in the army had a working relationship with a casting agent. That same casting agent was tasked with finding someone for the Biggest Loser, going on, to fulfill a role that I went on to fulfill. And it was kind of right place at the right time. But
is that where Commando Steve was born?
Yeah. So hence, the whole coming from that unit. But then I wanted not so much on television. They didn't use my name as such. It was the Commando, or and the like. It was more of that enigma kind of character. And as the years went by, I took the sunglasses off. People got to know me a little more in that sense, and I felt that was important, so that I wasn't so one-dimensional either. And otherwise, people just get sick of you. How many blokes are around who cross their arms and put sunnies on and yell and scream like the world's full of them. Like it's not a hard task, and it's all right when it's on TV, two or three times a week, but when it's every night, people are like, who's this clown? Like, really? Same shit over and over. And that's
need some
important.
substance.
Yeah, you do, and you need to build that rapport and a relationship with those who you're working with, and like anything, it's all about getting them to a place where they're willing to do it for themselves. And, you can use fear, which is motivating to a degree, but as soon as you turn your back, they're giving you the middle finger. They're like, fuck you. It's you want to give them that, or you want to help stoke that fire that's internal, so that, I used to say to them, when the doors are closed and the lights are off, what are you willing to do? Because that's what's going to count most. And so put a lot of effort into that. But personally, I struggled. Like, you go from the military, which talks everything down. You don't really ever talk unless it's in that cone of silence, that inner circle, to anybody about anything. And all of a sudden, I'm on television with a camera in my face, trying to string three words together. I couldn't speak to save my life back then. But I constantly felt sick. Like, there was just that. It was like you're about to go and do a jump, It's just that butterflies in your guts, you feel like you're going to puke, but over time,
constantly out of your comfort zone. Was that like fight, flight, a constant anxiety for you?
But I think, back to what I was saying earlier, I lived my life in that place, and I think unconsciously I was manufacturing my reality to induce that state of being, because that was my known state.
Addicted to adrenaline.
To do anything different was abnormal. To be calm, to be still, to be.
I was just going to say
it's foreign. It's a foreign land.
Yeah, exactly. So you as much as it creates discomfort, and you're aware of the discomfort and that agitation, that tension, you seek it, because that's what you've known ever since I was little. And it wasn't until doing the Biggest Loser and the like, and then CrossFit and doing the CrossFit Games, I came back from that. I had two young daughters at that point in time. I was like, what the hell am I doing with life? Like, I was 33, and I was like, if I continue this way, I'm going to kill myself, or I'm going to run out of steam real quick. And that's when things started to change big time for me.
It brings to mind that quote that we have two lives, and the second life begins when we realize we only have one.
Lost you. Sorry, I lost you there.
It reminds me of that quote that says, we have two lives, and the second life begins when we realize we only have one life.
Yeah.
So we're sort of mindlessly just doing shit, and we're really immature, and we're acting from all of our trauma and all of our conditioning, and all of a sudden we come into this moment of enlightenment or clarity or whatever you want to call it, and go, fuck, what am I doing? And then you start actually living a life well lived after that. And it's like, oh, this is better. It's a bit more balanced. It's a bit more,
Calmer.
can still be physical, but
Yeah,
I don't.
exactly. And that's right. I've said to people over the years, all those years, and there's many things that I can remember, but it was like it was in a fog. It was like I was
But
just,
we were conditioned to kill literally,
yeah.
and so the concept of peace was really foreign to me after that as well. Like
Oh,
I was a hand grenade in nightclubs in England. I was just
yep,
fucking going off left, right, and centre. Jumping through hoops of fire naked on Thai beaches at full moon parties, and I was literally a wrecking ball. And it's
yeah.
because
Oh,
the concept of peace was absolutely foreign to me.
yeah. Like and even words and the power of words, like to hear the word love, like, 15 years ago, or probably, yeah, I was like, you're a fool. Like, what are you talking
Mm.
about? Like, that stuff don't exist.
Men don't
And
use that word.
no, and now, mate, I couldn't open my arms enough to it.
That's awesome.
Well,
It's so good to
how did
reach
that
that
change
place.
around that age of 33, Steve? So what did you start to do differently, and
Well,
how did it look after that point?
well, mate, it's been absolutely amazing, and I think my ability to get to know myself more, a better relationship with myself, and in in that comes the ability to communicate and have a better relationship with other people. Like, even to this day, I'm still like, I can talk with you guys and the like, but outside of that, to rub shoulders and actually hang out and stuff, I've got loads of friends and stuff, but I'm not really close to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Mate, I've just, and I think that comes again from the younger years, like even being in a relationship, and I've been in many, and a lot of that has been, my pitfall in life, which I've really struggled with. But I've got to put a lot of effort into just being okay. I think I've got a lot of social anxieties, although people go, but you were on TV, you were this, and and it's like, but that doesn't matter. Like, you can put
Do you struggle?
you can put a,
Do you, do you struggle to maintain those relationships? Like it's just easier just looking after you, and that's
it's
nothing
easier to put
actually.
my rooftop tent on the back of my truck and go bush.
Yeah, yeah,
Mate, I can hang
yeah,
out with myself all the time. Like,
yeah, yeah.
and like and one bloke who I can, and I guess it's one of my brothers I grew up with. I'm quite at ease with him, but even with other blokes that that are my mates as such, it's like it gets to this threshold or this point where, all right, got to go. It's like it's over. Unless, like, I think back to my younger years, drinking and stuff, it kind of helps to numb or suppress a lot of those feelings, those thoughts. But
Lubricates it.
life now, sorry.
It lubricates the social ability.
Yeah. But outside of that, I had a dad or a stepdad I grew up with who didn't want to be around anybody. When I was in year 10, they decided to sell the family home, and they moved into a little town that if you closed your eyes for 5 seconds, you'd pass through it. And, it's all of those things, as we were talking, have an impact on, your social interactions and your development and just being amongst your peers and social groups and the like, which I guess to a degree I could hide in the military, because you only needed to rub shoulders with a few. And, a lot of the time, in a section or the like, or a small team, or what you're doing, your mouth was shut. You just had a job to do. But, the question was asked, after 33, doing Biggest Loser, which I was still doing, and I competed in the CrossFit Games, and I absolutely destroyed myself doing that. I felt empty. I was left. It was like adrenal fatigue. And even the thought of exercise and doing things made me feel sick. And I had a gym. I was,
That's a
had
problem.
loads of clients. I know, right? And I guess it was enough of a wake up call to, as you're saying before, that you've only got this one life, and what is it that you want to do with it? Who are you, and the like? And that's when I started reading a bit more and getting into it. And I read that book by, I don't know if you've read it, Eric Greeton's Resilience. A great book, and very much in that philosophical space, which I enjoy stoicism and philosophy, but I still felt there was, even in that sense, that it was lacking, and maybe lacking isn't the word. And I just kept investigating and found myself in Zen Buddhism and Buddhism as such, and that whole just there is no I, and we're all interconnected and the like, and we were saying before with formless and just energy, all that other, like, it appealed to me. And through, I think one of the most profound experiences for me was taking the physicality of who I am, and I guess a certain hyperactivity, and which if there's something you enjoy, anyone that knows anything about hyperactivity, it comes it manifests in many different ways. But if there's something you're extremely interested in, you'll go after it like a pit bull. Mm-hmm. And for me, meditation, to sit for 2 minutes or 5 minutes at the start, I struggled. But what I read about Zen Buddhists, and I guess the Japanese way of doing things, they were very structured and disciplined.
Yep.
I was like, mate, I'm going to do that. And I would sit and I'd put myself in a half lotus, and I'd want to cry. But they would say how they would sit for, hours on end and just bring it back to their breathing. And they would deal with the discomfort and what came their way, and learning to just be okay in that moment in time, whatever that moment was. And I learned a lot about myself, and being able to just bring it back to my breathing, that swinging door, and be okay with whatever arose in my body, the discomfort and the agitation, maybe the anger, a lot of stuff that I hadn't dealt with in life, and then the mind as well, and what would just, be pinging around the room. And then over time, I just found, especially at about a 30-minute mark, 45-minute mark, things would really start to just open up, and you'd almost be in this euphoric state between reality and some other place. And it was like you're awake, but you're asleep. And and you get addicted to that. And then you read about being mindful and aware,
that's getting
aware
high.
of that.
The masters call that getting high, and a lot of people fall into that mental trap of chasing that high through meditation. So they get addicted to meditating, the same as getting addicted to exercise and addicted to adrenaline. So it all comes back to that finding balance. And in Myndfit, where that's all based off Buddhist and Stoic philosophy, and it's based off everything's impermanent, and the source of all suffering is attachment, and trying to live back within the laws of nature. And it's interesting that two ex-military dudes are sitting here talking about Buddhism and Stoic philosophy and finding that balance and meditation, and it's so far removed from how we were trained and conditioned.
That's what I was thinking as Steve was talking about. This Zen Buddhism philosophies are so the antithesis of that, being in fight or flight all the time. There's a solid I and an identity, and I perceive threat everywhere. Some other humans are okay, but I don't like being around them for too long. It's like the real, we're finally kind of unconsciously at first craving the opposite to what has been happening before then.
I went from being hyper alert and hyper aware to hyper present. I don't know if you've done a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat.
No, I haven't. I need to. Yeah.
Oh fuck, dude! You talk about getting high through that. I was so hyper present, and I've spoken to Hass about it. It took me 20 minutes to eat an orange, because you're experiencing the orange. You're not just eating it or consuming it. And it's just mind blowing.
I hadn't thought of that actually. Because that's something that's been that hypervigilance. Like it's quite debilitating. It's like that radar is on all the time, and it's pinging.
I see everything. I see everything. And my relationship now, I get home and I see this there and that there, and they keep saying, we're not in the military. We can't have the house in a military state, that level of cleanliness. And I'm like, this isn't military, but I'm realizing there is still some hypervigilance in that area. Or when I'm out, I still find myself sitting and just observing unconsciously if there's a threat or anything. What would I do
Yeah.
if that? So
See, it serves me well for what I do as a coach, and especially in large groups. And I guess that's why, I've been quite fortunate in, over the years, and I guess that role on The Biggest Loser, and as the commando and the like. But the meat and potatoes of what it is that I've done is group training, and whether that's boot camps or especially in the corporate space, with large groups of 100 and up 100, 300. I've trained massive groups, and you seem to be able to not so much control, but steer them in a particular direction. And I think a lot of that comes down to that presence and that hypervigilance, because you identify the differences and what's, the anomaly, what stands out from the rest. And I guess, take that back to the military and why things are seen. But, and it's, doing a squat, for example, and, majority of people are squatting well and someone isn't, well, that's going to stand out against the rest. And people go, but how did you see that? I was like, well, it was pretty damn obvious. Yeah. But, and then that whole, I guess, take it back to the army and fault correction and stuff. So there's a lot of fantastic things that I was taught, and I think the military teaches that you can then take into other areas of your life, and as you move on. And for me, in fitness, but I guess the transition as Steve and living in that place of in a very sympathetic way to engaging in that parasympathetic, being calmer, creating space within myself, but space, I think, even externally, so others can just coexist alongside you. And then how you approach that and the language you use and the communication to help guide people. Whereas it used to be quite blunt. Nowadays, you learn to, I guess, you feel people's energy and you read them, and you kind of figure out what it is that you need to say and the tone you need to say it in, that inflection, which helps to bring the best out in people.
We won't tell anyone, Steve, but what's happening is you're becoming more emotionally intelligent. So well done. Yeah. It's that self-aware, the self-management, then the social awareness, and then the relationship management. So, I came out of the military, an emotional spud pretty much, and just, I knew what I was doing, I knew what they were doing, but I couldn't really manage it. But with this gentle evolution and this softening and this finding that balance, and so much of what I learned from the military was so useful. And even in what I'm doing, I've got the same thing, just in a different field. I can notice what people are saying. I pick up. I'm so tuned in and dialed into people, and it's I think it makes me very good at what I do, and probably makes me really effective. But I've got to use it in the right circumstance, in the right place. And that's that emotional intelligence coming. And I can't use that at home. I've got to read the room. I've got to read how people are feeling. I've got to read how I'm impacting on people around me. And I didn't have that previously.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I guess, I just, from the younger years in the military, aggression, anger, they were, that, I guess, anger is the emotion, and, the many forms that it manifests itself in. That was my go-to. I just, every situation to a degree, I just applied anger or aggression or, force to derive the outcomes that I was looking for. And that didn't roll too well with everybody. And I didn't realize how intense a person I was. Because in my own mind, I thought I was just this big soft teddy bear. And I think thinking that of myself, what I was trying to project outwards was a facade to try and mask that. And over time, especially as the commando, I recognized, and the littlest things have some of the biggest impacts. And for example, I'd say go to a fitness expo and people would come up and say, "Thank you, I love what you do." I didn't know how to take that. Or they want a photo with you or anything. And I used to say to people closest to me, how do I deal with that? What do I say? They just said, you don't have to do anything other than say thank you. And just give gratitude. Them, and gratitude, and just give them a moment in time to say and be whatever it is that they want to be or they feel they need to be. And the majority of the time, people are amazing. And that in and of itself, open those doors and the change would start to occur.
I liked it when my ego gave permission to people to not like me. It was all of a sudden, I needed to be liked, and I couldn't really handle people reflecting anything negative. And then one day I had this moment. I was like, not everyone on this planet's going to like me, and that's okay. And all of a sudden, I just felt this relaxing.
You could let go.
Relief.
Yeah, and people say, I don't like I think your business is shit, or the way you came with things I don't agree with that, Nick. I'm like, that's cool, man. Okay. And all of a sudden, I didn't have to be in conflict anymore. I didn't have to try and control the situation. I didn't have to fight this person. They weren't the enemy. It was just
even justify it.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot more peaceful.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I guess again for me is I can just I can be that guy. But at the same time, I think being that guy in a particular role, but the essence of who I am in many other different forms and ways is what makes me who I am, and the dad that I can be with my kids, and the relationship that I can have, and that with my clients, and it's so satisfying, and it brings you a lot of joy and happiness. I think as challenging as it can be, and for me, still early mornings and doing all that other type of stuff. But what I do and how I do it, and wanting to give my best so that others can have a great experience too is important to me, especially when it comes to coaching and exercise and moving and everything, because we're human, and unfortunately, fortunately, however you look at it, we've got these physical bodies. They're designed to be engaged with, and a lot of people suffer because they don't engage with them enough. And I think there's more efficient ways in which we can do things to get us to that place where we realize that actually we probably don't need to be consuming so much. I'm not just saying eating and the like, but just being present and being okay with how things are, which helps to shed ourselves and let go of so much.
Yeah, so true. Are you finding with clients, Steve, that you're, especially with young men, because what you've been describing is something that so many men struggle with, is this, if you think yin and yang, it's like just yang, 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 yang for decades. Are you finding with, men now, especially based on your journey, you're kind of helping them bring a lot more yin into their practice and their life?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of it isn't even it's not even spoken. It's, for example, how we run sessions. Like we spend a good 15 to 20 minutes essentially doing like a yoga flow.
Yep.
Like it's not really. I just say that because that's something most people can relate to. But there's that incorporation, downward dogs, cat, cow, lunge with some rotation, all these things to mobilize the spine, free the body up. But most importantly is to connect with the breath.
Yeah.
And it's that in and out, the inhale, the exhale, and just slowing that down. And, look at the science and our understanding behind all of that, things that have been in practice for thousands of years, and they know the benefits behind it. But science, I guess, is putting it in words that the Western mind especially can understand. And we're always looking for a reason why. Like, people want to know the reason why before they engage with something, rather than figuring out the reason why they're doing it through the practice. And, on average, human beings breathe 18 to 20 times per minute, when really most mammals and humans who are connected and breathe 5.5 to 6 times per minute. That's a very slow in breath. That's a very slow out breath. That's a much slower heart rate. That's a more engaged diaphragm. That's a more engaged mind and connection with the body, and vice versa. And you can't help just being more present. And you can go around it in a way about talking about the benefits of breathing in that manner, whereas it can become a bit too much, especially for younger ones. But then their consciousness, even look at my kids, my younger ones, they're more consciously evolved than we, even for our ages, we were when we were young. And I remember I'm 45 now. I was 40 having a conversation with one of my daughters, and she was 8, and she was understanding things I was saying as a 40-year-old. I'm like, wow, man, it's taken 40 years to get to this point. And she's 8 years old. So you then think to yourself, wow, the future isn't too bad for humanity, because their level of consciousness and understanding and the footprint that they're kind of taking in this world is, they're more present and aware of it. And their interactions, with themselves and nature, but also other humans. And I think that's a big thing that humans lose sight of is, we talk in terms of the world, when really the universe is indifferent. It's actually how we're impacting. Well, it's not just how we're impacting, other human beings, but, the bigger picture. And, I think we lose sight of just our own self-importance.
Absolutely. I think the future is bright. When you were speaking earlier about coming to that realization, asking questions like, who am I really? How do I actually want to be living? And for me, it was early 30s as well. But I see a lot of clients, and Nick, you can jump in and tell me if you notice the same, but a lot of clients over the last few years can be 18, 19, 20, 21, and they're coming in and asking these deeper questions. And they leave, and I just take my hat off, because I'm like, my God, I was a complete fucking idiot at 21. Like, to see that there's kids out there asking these deeper questions about how do I actually want to consciously live in the world, I think it's a great sign.
I had a client in Brisbane yesterday. He's 22, and I'm sitting there listening to him, and I'm just, fuck, what was I doing at 22? I was, banged up in the military, hitting piss as hard as I could, just trying to shag anything that moved, and that was my focus. And this dude's like, oh, and I just, me and my partner really feel like we keep deepening our relationship and my love for her, and da-da-da. And he goes, I'm really, and this dude's a trader, he's a Sparky, and he's like, I'm just finding that when I start letting go and just controlling the controllables, and I'm just sitting there going, what? What? And he's like, oh, I might even take a gap year off. I want to buy a house, but I'm set up. And I'm like, who are you, man? Like, how did you come to this? And he's like, oh yeah. A lot of his mates, are sort of attracting to that. So he's bringing people up to his level instead of getting dragged down to other people's level, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's it's pretty amazing, isn't it? And like, I've been fortunate to rub shoulders with people who've got significant influence in society as such, and the roles they play. And some of them I couldn't really care less for. And then there's people who they're only known to themselves and their family, and they're that a very small nucleus as such. And I'm more attracted to them and how they live their lives, and the struggles that they face than these others. And that's what people even ask me all the time is, who if you could sit down with it doesn't matter whether they're alive or not, if you could have a meal with them and ask them questions, who would it be? And you start throwing out names of people that nobody knows about, that have no real influence in the terms of the bigger picture of humanity, and it gets a bit lost. And I saw that even in my time on The Biggest Loser. I've been more motivated and inspired by people who've pretty much, their lives have utterly fallen apart and have been able to reclaim it to a certain degree, if that's the word, and you work through those struggles, drag themselves out of that hole that they dug, and be a participating active human being. I'm like, mate, job well done. Like,
it's inspiring,
amazing, because it's inspiring. Like, like one of my best mates who I met when I left the army with cerebral palsy. No one would train him, and I left the army not even knowing what cerebral palsy was. And I was like, mate, and I said to him, what's your goals? He goes, I want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. We had a laugh about it, and he was young. He was 22 or something. He couldn't even hold a broom handle. And he went on to bench pressing and deadlifting and going in powerlifting comps.
Wow.
you know, a lot like an angry little man because he'd been judged and you know, he's got a disability his whole life. Like the bloke went on to manage, you know, the whole floor in different David Jones, flagship David Jones. He's going to be a manager of a Good Guys, you know, in Sydney City. A lot of hard work, but still a bit of an angry man because he's judged automatically on his,
got a point to prove.
His physicality. That's exactly right. But again, you know, even me and the journey I've been on and my experiences, and we have conversations, it gives him something different to think on and not just, you know, be drawn to, you know, that you know, others that are, you know, kind of in that space. You know, there's a lot of aggression. There's a lot of like F the world as such. And because he's got a lot to offer. He's got a lot to educate people around too.
I talk to clients about our greatest strengths become our greatest weaknesses when they move past a certain point. And you're talking about we've got a lot to offer, but that the potential, no matter how much we've got to offer, will never come into existence when it's hamstrung by all these tendencies or this nature that isn't in balance. So I think you alluded to it earlier, and I was going to say that everything starts at home. When Ryan and I talk about tending to your own garden, and when you get your garden in order, when you get your house in order, then all of a sudden it just has this massive ripple effect where things just get easier and life gets easier and more peaceful, and it's just a bit calmer and cruisier, and you get into that flow state, and it's just there's not that that real heightened sort of dark energy about it. So I'm just I'm listening to you. I'm so pleased that you've worked your way, not just found, but I think you've really created and worked your way into this space, mate. So job well done. And now you're okay. You're in a position where you're giving so much to other people and helping them. So it's a credit to you.
No, thanks, mate.
Maybe one last question from me, Steve. Fatherhood. Tell me about your journey with fatherhood, the challenges, and sort of how you took to that initially. You know, I'm a dad. I've only got one. You've got four. Is that right?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Yeah. So
give me some advice, basically.
Well, I guess you're probably in a lot of different places. But for me, I just, not being so conscious of it, I just fathered how my father fathered us, me and my brothers. And, you know, that didn't even need the military to be military with him. And, you know, a lot of discipline, ruled with an iron fist to a degree. He'd line us up every night, ask us what we did wrong the day, and we'd get a hiding for it. And, oh, mate, yeah, like it was punishment central. Like it's, but, and not so much I was like that because my oldest is a female daughter, Brianna, and but I could still be very harsh. And it wasn't until that early to mid 30s that I started to realize that I didn't need to father how my father, you know, chose or unconsciously, you know, did what he did, and he kind of applied a lot of anger to everything that he did, and I think there was a lot of ignorance and there was a lot of hang-ups for him with things that had occurred, and it started to change profoundly. And my other daughter, Ella, what's she now? She's 13, going on 14. And when she came along, like there's a special, you know, kind of bond there with her. And then my two younger ones, Jack, who's 10, and little Axel, who's going on 6. You know, I definitely come at the boys a bit differently to how I do the girls, and I guess any dad that, you know, has both, you know, daughters and sons would say the same thing. But I can't hug them enough. I can't tell them I love them enough. I can't, you know, lay there and fall asleep with them in bed. You know, all those things that I enjoy doing it. So why not do it? You know, over watching television
sounds like you
or
cherish
doing this.
them.
Oh yeah, like it's, you know, but I also feel like through my own hang-ups and poor choices in life, I've let them down in certain in certain ways. But at the same time, I recognize I can't undo that. I've just got to be, the best version of myself as such, that I can in this present moment. And when I'm with them, I'm as present as I possibly can be with them. In and amongst, the life that we as humans have created and the busyness that we find ourselves, caught up in each day. And, I see it with my kids too. And I really try to take that moment to, for example, go to the beach or just go to the park and throw a frisbee. What most people, I think COVID has shown them that, it's nice to engage with those simple things, especially lockdown. To go to a park and have a picnic and just throw a frisbee or kick a ball, it can mean the world. But in the past, we had to go to the movies or we had to do this and we had to be buying things at the shops and, constantly keeping them engaged and in sporting activities. Like man, what do they learn from all of that? Just to be busy.
And consume.
That's exactly right. When it's nice to be able to focus. I love it. Just feel that air entering the body, that exhale to go about what it is that you're doing with your eyes open and to have a laugh and not take things so seriously. For example, like this might sound stupid, I'm going to say it anyway. We were in this park a few weeks ago and my daughter's playing around with her phone and we're taking photos of each other. And anyway, I grabbed the phone and I took a photo of a nostril. And I said to her, it's not a UFO. It's a unidentified, UNO, unidentified nostril opening. And then just stupid stuff. And, they thought it was freaking hilarious because they're young, they're kids. So then everyone's trying to take photos of each other's nostrils and catch them off guard. So whose nostrils that? Yeah. And I said, I'm going to get in touch with Kyle and Jackie O, and they have to do that. Get famous people with their nostrils and put them up and see if people can guess whose nostrils they are. It's just dumb. It's dumb. It's stupid.
It's playful.
Well, it's silly. It's silly, yeah. And there's a lightness. There's a lovely lightness to it. But it sounds like you're also helping just to have a human experience and to not outsource their happiness, to not place a heap of value on stuff out there, but just the real value lies in connection and being silly and having fun and being in the moment. Doing whatever strikes you in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. But there's, I guess, some tips on being a dad from Steve.
All right. So I got me and my little boy Tommy, we're doing nostril picks today. That's on the agenda. Mate, really enjoyed this chat. We've really appreciate having you on. And I know especially for our audience is mainly these guys kind of 35 to 55. And I think what you've said today is going to resonate with a hell of a lot of them because I know it has for me, mate. So we really appreciate you coming on today.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
No worries, mate.
It's been great, mate. Thanks and best of luck with everything.
Cheers. Thank you. For you too.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.